I'm embarrassed. Play your game and kiss girls so I'm not embarrassed. Hello, everyone. My name's Kay. I sometimes talk about things on the internet, sometimes I don't. I think it's been like a whole year since I've actually talked about something on the internet with you guys. But that's okay because we're back talking about something that I'm actually interested in. If you guys haven't been chronically online as much as I have recently, even though, to be honest, the chronically onlineness has we've kind of weaned over the past year. But if you guys haven't seen, there's been an article floating around from the Times on TikTok. Not the Times on TikTok, but just the Times, and the article has been floating around TikTok. And it's about the Ballerina Farm or the Nealman family. So if you guys don't kind of know what the article is about, I'm going to give you a breakdown on the family because I think that that's really important background information. The Nealman family includes Hannah Nealman, Daniel Nealman, and then their 8 children. They run a farm and a business, and they're like a meat packaging, they sell the meat that they make. And then she sells like her sourdough starters and stuff like that. So very like homesteady kind of. Hannah did attend. Sorry if I keep looking this way. This is where my laptop is for all my notes. Hannah did attend Juilliard on a scholarship for ballet. She was going to be a ballerina when she graduated. Daniel is a nepo baby for the whole of JetBlue Airlines. His father owns JetBlue, so nepo baby alert. I think we should get like a Twitch alert that like comes down. Nepo baby. Again, they have 8 children. They live on a farm. A massive TikTok following. It's her TikTok that she runs. I'm pretty sure they call it Ballerina Farms, but I think she's in charge of filming, editing, posting, things like that. To my knowledge, he doesn't like have any hand in any of that. I think he's too busy, to be honest. A lot of people online were talking about how like this whole article is written by the Times, and how the Times is very left leaning, and so whatever they say probably can't be super trusted, but I would hope that there would be enough journalistic integrity to keep the quotes accurate as to how they were said by the interviewee. A lot of people are also going into like specifics about Mormonism and just the religion of Mormonism. And I don't really want to go into that because when people are discussing it online in relation to Ballerina Farms, they're talking about how it's kind of cult like and there's brainwashing involved. But as someone who grew up in an area which had a large population of Mormons, I know that there are different sectors, just like any religion, of people who are more radicalized and people who are less radicalized within the religion. So I don't really want to talk bad about any kind of religion in this video. You guys can think what you want about how Mormonism plays into this whole situation, but I'm just not going to discuss it here on this channel. So let's actually get into what the article was kind of about. So the article that the Times put out was an interview with Hannah Nealman. And I think honestly what put her on the radar was her TikTok account, which blew up after she competed in Miss America, I think, or Miss Utah, one of the two. So she was doing pageants as she was having children, and she's very good at it. She's very successful. And her TikTok kind of blew up more once she competed in Miss America. And so, like I said, their TikTok kind of surrounds their family farm, what they do on the farm, what she does on the farm, what her kids, what her husband does. And I like to call it like trad wife, traditional wife, homesteading, homemaking. Hannah doesn't really adhere to the term trad wife. She says that she doesn't feel like she associates with it, but that's kind of just what I call it. Sorry, I'm looking at this like cord that's just like coming in on my wall, and I'm like, when did that get there? So the article follows her. I will say, yes, the writer, the journalist, did have some comments throughout the article that seemed kind of less journalistic and more imploring than anything. But the basic premise of the article and why people are so upset by it is because it is getting Hannah's take on what she did before she moved on the farm with Daniel, how she got to the farm with Daniel, what she does now that she's on the farm with Daniel. So it kind of follows her from like her start at Juilliard to where she is now. And not entirely, and it's like, oh, I got accepted to Juilliard, and then like this was my first year, and this was my second year, and this is when I met Daniel, things like that. But it kind of has that overarching kind of timeline. Some people are upset, and by some I mean a lot of people are upset online on TikTok, me included, because this article made it feel like this was a woman who didn't just choose to become a homemaker and someone who lives on a type of $1 million homestead like this. But this is a woman who kind of had her dreams like pried away from her or manipulated away from her. And this is kind of where people bring in like Mormonism and how Mormonism plays into this. Let's talk about why I think what quotes in this article and what points in this article I think kind of point towards Hannah having like her dreams ripped away from her, because Hannah wanted to be a ballerina. Whenever she went to Juilliard, her whole goal was to be a ballerina after she graduated. And that's one of the main like points in the article that people are latching onto. The journalist asked in the article, was this always the dream, meaning like the homestead and the farm? And Hannah answers no. She says, I wanted to be a ballerina, period. I was a good ballerina. And so people are kind of really upset by this because I think they feel like this is still her dream. She still wants to be a ballerina. And then also like another point in the article that has contention surrounding it is that she wanted a ballet studio on the farm. So she wanted a place that could be converted for her to do ballet, but instead her husband converted it into a schoolhouse for their 8 children. So that's kind of upsetting and unsettling. Another kind of like main point that people are talking about is like how they met. Whenever they met, I guess, in Salt Lake City or in Utah somewhere at some kind of collegiate athletic event. And in the article, he says, I knew right then and there I wanted to date her, I wanted to marry her, I wanted to be with her. And it says that she would not give him the time of day for like 6 months. Probably obviously meaning that she was like focused on what she was doing in her own life, which is totally fair. But the way that he got a date with her, again, Nepo baby alert, he knew that she was flying back to New York to study at Juilliard again, to start up her ballerina studies for the next academic year. And he said, that's so crazy. You're flying back on JetBlue and this is your seat number? That's my seat number. Well, I'm right next to that seat number and we're flying back to New York together. Wild. And so that's how he ended up being able to talk to her and get to know her. And I just think that's fucking crazy. So there's some contention about like how they met and how he kind of lured her into dating him. Also, she wanted to date for like at least 6 months before they got married, but he went, no, we have to get married now. And so she said, okay, I guess we're getting married now. And then dropped out of Juilliard and then they moved somewhere overseas. I don't quite remember exactly where it was, but there's like a lot of questions surrounding like if the way that they met was amicable, I guess. That's not really the word, but you know what I mean. Like, is that how they should have met? Was this kind of coercion? That's what a lot of people online are thinking. One of the like last points that I think really shows kind of like, oh, is she like almost like a battered wife? Not battered, you know, I don't think he's beating the shit out of her on the daily, but is she kind of someone who's like stuck in this situation, who's being controlled by the will of a man? Is that she had all of her children like at home, right? Which is fine. A lot of people like home births. You know, I babysat for a woman who couldn't do home births for like a long time, and finally with her last child, she was cleared to do a home birth and she loved it. Like, it was her favorite thing in the world. So I know a lot of people really like that, and that's your own decision if you want to have your baby at home, if you want to have it in the hospital, whatever, who cares? But the one thing that kind of struck me was that she said, no, I don't like taking epidurals because I don't like putting drugs in my body. Again, whatever you want, who cares? But when she like talked about getting an epidural for her last children, she whispered it to the interviewer and said something along the lines of, Daniel doesn't know, which is kind of like, why could you not communicate that to your husband? Like, a lot of people are going to be up in arms about him not being there for like the birth of their last child. I'm not really up in arms about it. My father almost missed my birth as well. But like, why could you not have open communication about, hey, I really need an epidural this last time I got an epidural, and he would be like okay with that. Like, it's her body. You know, I'm sure she knows by this point, after 8 children, I'm sure she knows what's best for her and the baby. So those are some points about why Hannah could actually be like a miserable wife who is just not miserable in like a bad wife kind of way, but someone who is miserable in her life and had to give up her dreams and her desires to marry this man. Another point, this man is a millionaire. Like, I'm assuming he is. I think everyone online is kind of assuming that he is the heir to JetBlue and has millions of dollars. And even if he doesn't have JetBlue money, their farm does really well. Like, they are very successful farmers. And so the fact that you got her an egg apron to like collect eggs, one of her daily chores, instead of a vacation to Greece like she wanted after having your 8 children and running half of your farm, kind of gives me the ick. Regardless, there is still another side of this that I wanted to talk about, and that a lot of people are talking about online, which is the fact that this could just be an act and she's playing into it because she knows that this is her brand. So within this point, there's like the understanding on her end that she's getting attention from this, from being like used as this like sad kind of wife who had her dreams ripped away from her, that she's getting attention from this and she's monopolizing on it with posting videos and getting views and comments and engagement from this situation. And I think honestly, with her having been doing content creation for a good while, I think she kind of knows how to work the system. Like most people who create content, they know that any publicity is usually good publicity if it's just giving you interactions. They also talk about in the article being like co-CEOs. So the interviewer asked like, oh, is Daniel like the one who leads all these operations? And Daniel was like, no, like we own it together, we do it together. Whenever we started this, Hannah said that whatever I do, she wants to do as well, even though he assumed that she was going to take more of like a homemaker, motherly type of role. Whenever they started, she said that she wanted to be in it all the way or not at all. Also, after she dropped out of Juilliard, she did still dance for a little bit. Even after she had like a few kids, she was actually a professional dancer. So she did achieve her goals of being a professional ballerina for a little bit. It wasn't like she was never a professional ballerina. She actually was able to live out part of that dream. So it could have just been a case where she did live out part of that dream and then realized that she actually liked having kids and being a homemaker more than she liked being a ballerina. And that's totally fine. Dreams can change. Mine change all the damn time. Also, she still gets to compete in these pageants, which she really likes to do. I think she really enjoys being able to dress up and being able to go out and see all these people and mingle. And I think that's just the type of person she is. She mentioned that she really loved the city, so I'm assuming that she likes the hustle and bustle and socializing, and she's probably like a really big extrovert. So she's still able to compete in these types of pageants. And her husband, I'm not going to say lets her, but her husband supports her, you know, and her 8 children as she goes and she does these pageants that she wants to do. So those are kind of the two sides of the story that I've been seeing people talk about online. One where Hannah is kind of like the miserable homemaker trad wife who got ripped away from her dreams at a young age by a nepo baby who manipulated his way into her life. And then also people who are saying that actually this is just her brand and this is how she's making money and she's profiting off of all of us having this type of like deep emotional connection with her journey and her story. And honestly, it doesn't really matter. Whatever she's doing, it doesn't really matter because the story is impacting women in this deep emotional way. And I think it's because we all know someone in our lives who's like this, a woman in our life who is actually someone who was ripped away from their dreams, whether it's your mom, your sister, your friends, your cousins, ripped away from something that they really wanted to do by a man who wanted everything, and that everything didn't include his wife's dreams and aspirations.